Welcome to the Blackout Show, presented by the Guillen Grid, a show about the Chicago White Sox baseball, the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll debate what's working and what's not on the south side of Chicago. It's old school versus new school baseball. And most importantly, we're keeping all the receipts.
Yo, what is up, everybody? It's Gonzo here. With me tonight is Justin Lee and Ozzie Guillen Jr. So, to begin it, boys, our boy Lou Bob is back in AAA. He is back on reassignment. Guys, is this the only thing we get excited for? And the fact that with Pantera, the fact that he came, unfortunately, Junior, he came back for reassignment in a time when a good friend of yours went down with a knee injury in Acuna, and this could potentially be the Luis Robert Jr. stock going through the roof. Not only just for Acuna, but for other outfielders around the league.
I was on that. I was in that bandwagon. I'm gonna say no. Okay. His injury list is horrible. I'd say Tommy Pham right now will probably bring you back a better prospect than Robert will, just because you'd have to pay his contract still, and you're trying to find someone that's going to stay on the field and be healthy. Unless he pulls off an MVP season like Ronald Acuna has, which he has at this moment. And by the way, shout out to Eric Davis, who they exactly have the exact numbers in the first couple years of their career, except the MVP. But Eric was another player that got, was playing with injuries. So that's part of the game. But Pantera right now, I've asked, a lot of teams are concerned about that injury bug that he has had since he got to the big leagues. So I think that he won't be as easy to move as White Sox fans think that he is going to be. I think there's a lot more value in the pitching staff, actually, but he's back. I don't know why he's in reassignment in AAA. I don't know what he's going to learn down there. Like, he can rehab up here. Like Ozzie said today on 670 The Score, Pantera with no legs is better than everyone in the outfield except Tommy Pham. So, but who knows why they do certain things. I know that right now he's flirting with not playing more than 100 games. That affects his trade value if that's your goal. If it's your goal is to extend him and make him the first $100 million player for the Chicago White Sox, then it really doesn't matter. But is he going to be? Again, question marks.
The team that makes the move for Luis Robert, they won't be trading for the best player on their roster. They'll be trading for the 4th through 6th best player on the roster. You're not going to yield a top prospect with that value. Now, we do have an extensive injury history with Pantera, but at the same time, with his age, and he's kind of on a bargain with considering if he scratches his ceiling more than 2 years, I mean, you're getting a deal. But to your point, OJ, like, we're talking about a guy that has an imperfect approach at the plate. He's not throwing out the runners of platinum center fielder. What are you thinking of getting back? Because let's just be honest, there's a big gap in Luis Robert and a guy like Kyle Tucker, Mookie Betts. There's like, when you compare Luis Robert to the other outfielders in the league in that conversation, there's kind of a big gap. Okay, let's just put it out there. Luis Robert better than Julio. But who else? So I think the White Sox I don't understand why he rehabbing too. We got plumbers playing right now, but you got Lou Bob sitting there in AAA. Just bring him up and see what you got, because at least you can have on his soul he's not playing for a World Series. For the first time in his major league life, he's not playing for a World Series. Hopefully that could take a little bit of load off his mind and he could get to doing what he's doing. Because at the end of the day, like, this is where we are with the White Sox. Even a healthy Luis Robert he's not going to put you over 500. The guys that you're bringing in, if you do make a deal, they're not going to take you over 500 too. So it's a sideways deal. You're trading for a future that you don't even know how to build for in regards to the White Sox.
And he needs to start playing better. I know a lot of people don't care about WAR, but mine is 0.1, 6 hits, 2 home runs, and 20.
Yeah,
it wasn't
he got
like
something to prove.
He wasn't like Moncada was at least playing a little bit better. He wasn't playing great. So again, 7 games. He has not played 150 yet. Only played 100 once. I think that before. Again, I call it Hype City for a reason. Hype City, Chicago, Southside Hype. They need to let this guy have a season, like a healthy season, before him going in and having an MVP run and being that face of the franchise and being the guy and, being that superstar. We've had this before. We had Carlos Quinton go for an MVP run. He was ever the same player afterwards. That can happen, but what you want is a guy that's consistency. Jermaine Dye, Frank Thomas, Robin Ventura. You can go down the list of guys that can put a 6 to 8 year run. Maglio, Carlos Lee, where he could be a big part of the team. And not at this point. I don't necessarily have him being the best player on the White Sox when they're back to being above 500 team. He doesn't have to be the best player. If he is not the best player, that's actually the roster got constructed really well. If you bring people to play around him, not making him the superstar on the field and stats. So it's somewhat exciting to come back, at it. And even the way that they're playing, it'll help them get better to 500. But it seems even with guys come back that, again, there's an elephant in the room, which is the manager and the way things are going, and that it doesn't advance to win. So at this point, Luis Robert just needs to stay healthy and kind of just play his way and mature in the major league level.
Well, I'll tell you one thing right now. I can tell you whose level he's not on. We got a guest tonight. We got Todd Welter for Locked On Sox, and there's a big gap in talent between Pantera and Todd. Gonzo, bring Todd in right now.
Well, Todd's done it for a lot longer.
And on that note, Luis Robert stock's not the only one on the rise, and we're about to jump into it in our Blackout Live. Making his first appearance on the Blackout Show is Todd Welter from Locked On Sox. Todd, I got 3 questions for you for this show. Our first question that we're going to roll on to, you just heard us talk about Luis Robert stock. I want to ask you, the next guy up, potentially, a lot of talk of it, Garrett Crochet. I want to ask you, Todd, is this a guy that, first you give me your analysis on Robert stock, but also I want to get to, would you keep Crochet or would you trade him?
Well, first, thanks for having me on, and I appreciate that warm reception. You guys have great production quality here. Those videos are awesome. When it comes to, first of all, Luis Robert Jr. stock, I agree with you guys on that I think a lot of people are overvaluing just one season that he had. That, yes, he proved he could play over 100 games, but other than that, he's been injured most of his career. And that was the going thing around for most of the people. Most of the insiders were saying that his stock is still not high because he has to keep proving that he can stay healthy and that he can play well. And especially if I'm a GM on the other line, I would be like, he's only played 100 games 1 year. Now I could counter back if I'm Getz. Well, he'll help you defensively, but that's still, not where I'm going to be giving up maybe a top 5 prospect. I'm not giving you the Dylan Cease package that you got for Dylan Cease for Luis Robert Jr. right now. With Garrett Crochet, the only way I'm trading him is I'd have to go to him and say, are you going to want to go to free agency? Are you going to play the arbitration game? If you can get him extended, if you can get him on a cost control deal, or if you can at least get him to say, I would like to maybe give you, a 4 or 5 year deal extension, I would say you build around Garrett Crochet. I get that, they have other options in the minors to move Crochet, but you're talking about a guy who has 73 career innings before this year. He's had a lot of great starts. He looks like a dude, but he also struggled a little bit this year. So, that's what I'd be on the phone as another GM. I'd be like, this guy's only thrown 63 innings prior to the season, and he's already had Tommy John surgery. So I would keep him, knowing that also the guys that I have at AA, some of these guys might not pan out. They've gotten a lot of talented prospects, but some of these guys might pan out. They might get injured. So that's kind of my viewpoint on. I would stick with Crochet unless he tells me, I'm looking for like a $300 million deal once I get to free agency. Then I would look to maximize.
So and the only reason why I don't want the White Sox to trade Garrett Crochet is because look at the Rangers right now after they traded Cole Ragans. They're an expensive, non-competitive team just rostering Corey Seager and everybody else. Imagine if they would have kept Cole Ragans. What conversation would we be having? Like, don't get me wrong. I don't see the White Sox competing to the level of the Texas Rangers post Ragans, but you can still have the same consequences playing that same game. He's the best pitcher in your organization right now with Noah Schultz a bit away. You don't have to make that move.
I don't want to trade him. I don't want to trade him because, and the White Sox have done this twice. They've done it with Chris Sale. I'm not saying Crochet's either of these guys, by the way. They've done it with Sale. They've done it with Cease. They were a little bit more advanced than Crochet is at this point. But you don't know where this team is going. And there's not a lot of Crochets out there that you can go and get if you get rid of him. And then from a development standpoint, Crochet is above average, where development-wise, it will be a little bit harder to get somebody like Crochet. His arms, the way that he throws, his build, the way that he's been able to react in the big leagues, starting and relieving. I just think that it's pointless to just move everybody for the sake of we're restructuring the team. You got to keep players. I'll go back to 1980s. The White Sox rebuild in 86, and they kept Ozzie Guillen, Ron Karkovice, Gottlands. Like, you have to keep certain players to start your next move. So I have Crochet in that list of guys that have a lot of years of control, who I think is a way above average, and I think he's going to be very serviceable. And if they do, and again, my window is talking about getting back to 500. As quick as you can get back to 500, you can then go get players to compete for a playoff. I think you get to 500 quicker with Crochet than without Crochet. That's my personal belief.
Well, and you can also, you're going to dramatically at least alter your franchise in this offseason. You only got 2 guaranteed contracts on the books. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to go into free agency and spend a ton of money, but they have the ability to at least upgrade rather quickly or plug their holes rather quickly. And that's why I would not want to get rid of a top of the line rotation like Crochet unless somebody calls up and is like, I'm going to give you, my number 1, number 3, number 5 prospect for Fetty and Crochet. Maybe then you got to listen. And I get that they want to say nobody's untouchable, but Garrett Crochet has got to be the closest thing to being untouchable on this team. And plus, not that, you got to give us something to watch during this rebuild. For example, Junior, your dad was one of the people that we watched in the late 80s. I remember he was one of my first heroes because he was one of the few people that was worth watching on that team, on those teams. So you got to give us something to watch. And that's why, by keeping Robert Jr. and keeping Crochet, at least we got something to tune into. Otherwise, it's the Oakland A's. That's all I'm going to say about that one. We don't want to be the Oakland A's out here.
They got Mason Miller. I would be okay.
They got Mason Miller, but aren't they trying to look to move him?
Oh, well, yeah. But hell, we're potentially
somebody.
moving the Sox every other year when Jerry gets pissed.
By the way, the White Sox moving and I'm going to say something, and I think Todd would. I don't know how Todd's stand is on Jerry, and we have to ask Jerry's best new friend, Pedro Grifol. Never seen anybody build such a great relationship with the old guy in less than 2 years. Jerry's the greatest White Sox owner of all time, spending-wise. One guy, the guy who's obviously the most famous owner, his name had the stadium, probably the most popular, was so cheap, his team threw a World Series to get paid. Okay? Bill Beck, or Beek, for all those that are newer that don't know him, that know him under that name, had to sell the White Sox because he couldn't compete in the market. And constantly had teams, players that were like, just like the whatever guys. And basically Dick Allen saves him when he brings Dick Allen over, because they basically didn't want him at where he was at, and saves Chicago White Sox baseball on the south side of Chicago. So owner-wise, it's not like he's in the bottom. I don't know what people think that the next guy's going to come in and spend money, especially when the richest team in Major League Baseball is crying, saying, we can't sustain a $300 million payroll in the New York Yankees. So White Sox fans saying we're going to get Elon to come and buy the White Sox and someone's going to spend $700 million and we're going to be champions that way. Look at Cohen. He can't figure it out. He just threw money at the problem. I think that they need to really, really bet on Chris Getz front office in with all the guys that he brought in. Okay. The fact that they're going to reevaluate what they have, and they're going to build this team with a strong core. And then when they go sign the free agents, they sign guys that are good guys. I'm going to say this right now, and I don't know where Todd ranks Rick Hahn on this. I have Kenny Williams up at a very high standard because I heard Kenny talk baseball every day for 8 years. And he did every role he was very successful in, and he got a World Series. And he hired Ozzie Guillen. Jerry asked him to interview Ozzie. He said, this is my guy. Very successful, both of them together. Now I think that the rebuild was not wrong. I think the rebuild had core players. I think Rick Hahn, and this might make me, Rick might jump me or try to jump me when he sees me walking down the street. I think he just sucked at evaluating players when he came to free agents. He sucked at evaluating the manager that he brought in for his run. Okay. And he sucked at all the free agents that he signed. So Chris Getz can't make that mistake when his core is ready. Can't make a mistake of the Dallas Keuchel. Can't make the mistakes of the Lance Lynn. Can't make the mistake of everybody in that bullpen. The catcher. You got to be able to be smart. So I think that we really need to start rooting for the front office guys in Chris Getz and those guys, either to get removed and have somebody else come in and have a shorter runway and bring it back, or hope that these guys really get it, because I don't really think somebody's going to buy the team and spend $700 million and make him a champion. I really don't. It doesn't happen that often in baseball or in sports in general.
Well, yeah, and I mean, when it comes to the spending, the Mets show that and even the Padres, you can't just spend recklessly and put together a great team. What you got to do is you got to spend smart, you got to spend wisely, and when there's like superstars on the market, you got to jump on those potential, on those opportunities. That's where I fault Jerry. Like, you shouldn't laugh at the idea of even calling Shohei Ohtani. Like, would he have come? No, but you still don't just chuckle at it. That's an example. I think the other thing, I agree with you and Jerry spending money. I think that's a fair point that I've kind of realized that I should be more fair to him, because he actually has spent money as you look throughout his ownership tenure. I mean, think about it. Albert Bell was the first $55 million contract ever, and that was the first double-digit salary. But the thing is, right now, Jerry needs to spend the going rate, and the going rate for premium talent is $100 million. That you kind of need to break that streak, for example. But I agree with you that, just because you get a new owner, it doesn't mean everything's going to be magically great. You might get Steve Cohen on the other end, and we don't know what Baltimore's owner is going to be. But at the same time, what you were saying, Baltimore should be the envy of every White Sox fan, because what did they do? Even with the dysfunctional ownership, they drafted well. And I wrote about it on Southside Showdown, and I think we get a lot of headline readers. People are like, well, you can't tank. Okay, yeah, Baltimore tanked, and they cashed it in, but Gunnar Henderson was a second-round pick. That means 30 teams and the Orioles passed on him, and then 11 more teams passed on him.
Yeah.
You know, that's where the Baltimore Orioles do well, was they drafted well, and then they went and they made a deal for Corbin Burns. And like you were saying, that Rick Hahn did, was incorrectly. He traded for the wrong pitcher to put him over the top in Lance Lynn. And then he gave up Dane Dunning, who is a nice young arm, to get Lance Lynn. That where, for example, the Baltimore Orioles, they go and trade for Corbin Burns. Yes, he's a rental, but they only gave up DL Hall and Joey Ortiz to get him.
Where's DL Hall right now?
And DL Hall, I believe, is injured.
Well, I agree with Todd, though, because I think he traded not only for the wrong guy, but he did it 1 year too late. And we know the whole story with the Moncada endeavors. And here in Chicago, a lot of people said that Rick Hahn was the next Theo and that he was a genius. And White Sox Twitter would have these, meetings with him, and everybody thought. And at the end, I'm still judging his tenure because it's still affecting this team. And this team, these guys are cleaning this up. But you hit a great point on. I believe that you can lose games and not tank on purpose while you build. And I think that's what Baltimore did. They weren't just going out there and losing. They're in a very hard division where the worst team, Tampa Rays, are very competitive. Mm-hmm. So I think that when you're a good front office, you find value in the first 7 rounds, regardless of what position you're picking in, because those are the positions like when you compare, and you can do a pivot table if you want. There's teams that get steals that beat other teams in later picks. The White Sox are notorious for getting beat, where teams pick behind the White Sox, okay, and they get better picks. That's what it's all about. The White Sox, you could say, tanked for 4 or 5 years. They just drafted really bad players compared to other teams that were not tanking that have, and then the Latin American signing. Let's not even go down that line of how bad they were during that Rick tenure at the end with the Latin American signing, that they would only sign you if you were Cuban. Okay, where is the Jose Ramirez? Imagine if the Sox had Jose Ramirez. Like, he would have signed a nice team-friendly deal. Somebody loves Chicago as much as he loves Cleveland. Like that, Ronald Acuna in Atlanta. Ronald's contract is very team-friendly. But those guys came from that international signing. And what I want to talk about this is that we're seeing little progress from the front office. And I guess we're still judging Chris a little harder because of what he said. We're going to be competitive, and this team's horrible. And obviously he still has Pedro on his staff. But I think I'm really intrigued to seeing this draft. I think that last year, kind of like the shift happening. But you can't blame these guys for faulting that. I have a question for Todd, though. Todd, you do a daily show, correct?
Yes. How
the hell do you prepare yourself episode wise for a season like this? And I listen to your stuff, so it's not repetitive. You don't have 7 Pedro Grifol, what the F, back to back. So how do you plan on that? Like, how do you really?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you guys listening, and any notes I would appreciate if you ever want to send me DM wise. One of the things is I also run the Southside Showdown on the Fan Side of Network, so I kind of just go with fresh content, thinking, okay, what would I want to hear every day, and I wouldn't want to hear complaining. So what I like to do is, for example, I like to think of when a series ends, who did well, who did bad. That's what I would want to know. If I didn't want to watch the season, which a lot of people are not watching this year, what are the Cliff Notes versions? And that's the way I look at it when it comes to the content creation. What Cliff Notes versions can I give to the audience that is basically not wanting to waste their time? Like right now, how I've got the game on the side looking over. What would they want to know about? What's the good? What's the bad? And although this week it does feel like it's a good week to roast Pedro Grifol, but you're right. I can't just keep doing complaining about Pedro Grifol every single day.
So it's my favorite. So it's my favorite because I watch it. I read it on Facebook. Okay. And I know Gonzo and Jay are huge Twitters. The people on Facebook are 10 times wilder than they are on Twitter. The takes are just like, I literally can sit there, I read the article, and I just sit at the comments because they just go nuts, and I love it. So I love how you always play like devil's advocate and will not, like the Juan Soto one where you say 2 simple reasons why they will not pursue Juan Soto. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to touch back on that one because you hit the nail on the head on Shohei Ohtani. And there was a rumor, and I actually told someone to tell Chris that was like the rumor that was going around, was that there was free agents calling, there was agents calling the White Sox to talk about their player, and they were saying like, we're not really looking at those type of players, so we don't want to talk. And that's not a rumor that you want going around in baseball, because, and then Jerry had made the Ohtani comment. I come from the school of, you talk to every single agent. You might not send Chris to talk to that agent, but I think that you have those conversations open enough, because even if you don't land the player, it's going to give you experience. So when that big conversation, it's like presenting at work. Like if you don't present constant, or you're not at work, that big meeting, that big close you're going to have, you're not going to have experience. Like playing a sport, you're not going to have that big at bat and hit that home run if you don't have, the at bats to kind of have that experience. So I feel like part of like them losing on, Machado, them losing on Harper, it's from inexperience. So you know what I mean? Like they haven't been able to utilize the tools and resources around them. We've seen them do things like, try to bring a second cousin for a player in the team. I think all those things come with experience. So if I'm Chris Getz in the front office, I'm having meetings with every single top free agent, including Juan Soto, just to see what he wants, take a shot at him, and then get ready for the next, free agent that I might try to land. I just saying I'm not going to sign him. You might learn something from sitting down with Ohtani, who's the biggest name in baseball and marketing, and kind of give you ideas of like what he's looking as a superstar coming to Chicago. So I love that Juan Soto one, because you talked about that, where they're not going to talk about him and talk to him, and it's going to be too much money. And I think the White Sox should talk to Juan Soto, even though the percentage of them getting him is very low compared to every other smaller market team, because he's looking to go, the bigger teams are always going to be the top cities to land. But I want Juan Soto's a guy where, he has the credentials, he has the success. He is a guy that we've seen carry a team. And if you're going to give $100+ million to somebody, why couldn't that be Juan Soto? So I really liked that article, but I really wish that the White Sox changed that perspective of, we need to talk to every single player out there and turn every rock before we go and make a move.
Well, no, that just really quick. I mean, the other reason why they should be talking to Juan Soto is if you want a brand new publicly funded baseball stadium, put a superstar in it.
Yeah.
And put a young superstar in it like Juan Soto. Pursuing Juan Soto would be something Jerry Reinsdorf should really look at, because again, a lot of people are like, well, wait a minute. You're only going to put $200 million into this proposed $1.9 billion stadium. And again, you're not paying the going premium market rate. One way you can shut up that argument is go get Juan Soto, pay the $500 million for him, because he's going to be worth it. He's a draw at the gate. He's a tremendous talent, and he's a guy that you could build around for the next decade.
Yeah, and Juan Soto got a superpower. He plays every day, and even though I'm not going to say he's a mediocre defender, but you don't have to DH Juan Soto and he loses value, right? On a baseball sense, it's perfect, because let's just say we keep Pedro Grifol and Gonzo. I got Grifol's grounds teed up right now. In a baseball sense, how many different lineups do you have to draw in if you have Juan Soto for 162? That decomplicates a ton. But let's talk about the complicated. This is Grifol's grounds.
I don't have a problem making decisions. I don't have a problem making a call on a pitcher. I don't have a problem making a call on whatever our team needs at this particular moment.
And this is Grifol's Grounds, where we get into everything Pedro on the field. And in this case, we're going to go into some external hiring options here in a little bit, brought to you by a wonderful Beef Loaf article. But in the meantime, Junior, there is trouble in paradise.
Oh, there is, and they're ignoring it.
You tweeted about it.
You know what? I have a soft spot for Jerry Reinsdorf, because I talked to Jerry about everything other than baseball. If I texted Jerry right now, it would be like, what do you think about this business deal? I'm buying this building. Give me advice on money. If I get a text from him, it's about my kids. And we've had that relationship since I've been as a young adult. So, and it's funny because number one, I don't think he talks to a lot of people about baseball. In general, his circle is very small, and I've never wanted to have that relationship because unless he asks me something, I feel like it's annoying, asking him about the team, especially when I'm not involved in a day-to-day. It feels like I'm like fishing for something. I can get information from a million other people that are probably more resourceful than Jerry, just because on the field side, he's not a guy that sits there after a game. Like if I was an owner, I'm text messaging my manager every day after the game. So I'll give you an example. My dad is managing in Venezuela. That owner texts me after every game so I can either ask Ozzie something or filter something because he needs to know. Jerry, again, he might have been changing. People change when they're older. In his years with Ozzie that were there, including the bad years with two of his favorite people in the world, literally trying to kill each other in the media. Okay. Jerry loves Kenny Williams. Jerry loves Ozzie. In his weird way, it's two people that he cared for. And Kenny and Ozzie would be going at it. And he never sent a text message to be like, tone it down, which I think now in hindsight he should have. But he doesn't get involved in that day-to-day. Like the most he would do is come down, watch batting practice, and kind of like feel for the team. But he's not a guy that's texting. So for Pedro to go out of his way and say that he's getting those text messages, okay, especially how they're playing, I just don't think is his style. I think the only manager that probably gets text messages from Jerry, just because they're friends off the field, like friends beyond the game of baseball, and they've been like that for many years. Jerry was probably texting him when he was managing in other teams, asking about his manager, is Tony. Okay, so the fact that Tony's involved with the team, so he's going to text the manager instead of texting Tony and saying, what do you think about this, this, and this? So I just think it's funny that he said Jerry wants to win. Like Jerry, that those words came out of his mouth. Jerry's not the type of person that sits in a meeting and says, I want to win. He just does it with like, okay, can we be of course, every owner wants to be competitive, and he hasn't figured out a way how to do it since Ozzie's era. And then kind of like they sold them on this rebuild. But he's not a type of guy that sits in a meeting and says, like Kenny and Ozzie, like, we need to win. Like, that's not his style. Like, Kenny used to walk into meetings and say, like, we need to win. We need a center fielder. We need this guy. So has Ozzie. That's their style and personality. So for Pedro to say that, and that's like of a whole week of just saying dumb shit, it's getting to the point where, like, it's a joke because everyone that knows Jerry and knows, like, the team is, like, texting each other of, like, now you're embarrassed. I think it's going to hurt him because I think that the old man was probably not judging him at all. And now he's like, this guy's like, Jerry doesn't like butt kissing. People might think that Jerry doesn't like brown nosing. He's not that type of guy. Like, you earn your work. You do, you show up every day. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. Just show up and work and I'll decide. Don't be a brown noser. I don't think he's going to like that very much. So I actually think that comment might backfire on him, and his time is actually ticking. And this is back to Todd and his articles. Todd wrote an article in 2023. Don't remember when. Okay. But it was about a gentleman named Gabe Kapler. Okay. I thought there should have been a managerial change at the end of last year, just so you saw somebody new and see if that guy was going to be the stopgap in this rebuild. Now, you've literally wasted you're at this point, you're almost wasting another season in Pedro where there is no growth. Okay. My concerns about his comments about they were flat. Okay. A manager can say that whenever, but I'm going to voice what AJ Brzezinski and then Ozzie today reiterated. They were throwing a no-hitter against you from one of the best in baseball and my top pitchers. Of course you're going to be flat. Everybody's like, man, this guy's nasty. If you would have gone and said something on one of the...
You see what Jim Palmer said?
Well, yeah, because he's right. If you would have said the games like that where they lost the leads or like, somebody made a lackadaisical error and you said the words they were flat or, we didn't pull through and you kind of snapped, that's understandable because that happens in the game. But to call him out on a no-hitter, and then it seems like there was a gap from what I've heard of he hasn't been pissed in the clubhouse, so no one knew where that came from. You can't do that. You kind of let players know that you've been upset before you go out and like.
I gotta know, Todd. Where did the flat comments fall for you? Like, how did you receive them?
A desperate man trying to play a card he should have played last year. I mean, that would have made sense if he played it in May of 2023. I mean, none of that. Like this year, there's been plenty of games where they've just been flat out non-competitive and flat during that 3-22 start. You could have played that card then. To me, it was. I mean, I wrote about it. I talked about it. It was a bad comment to make, and to me, he's reflecting a lot of what his mentor Ned Yost was doing towards the end. He's going through the same unraveling, and I covered Ned Yost when he was on his way out in 2008 with the Brewers, and towards the end of me when he was with the Brewers, and they fired him in September while they were still in the wild card race because literally he was brought into a meeting with Mark Antanasio and was asked, how can we turn around because they were losing ground in the playoff race? And he said, I don't know. And they fired him on the spot after that. I mean, to me, it was just a guy that was just is grasping at straws. And like you said, Junior, that it just came out of nowhere. Like you've been defending guys. You called Andrew Benintendi a pillar of the lineup. And then in the next couple of days, you're saying that you came out flat against a really, really good pitcher. And there's been games where you've been flat out non-competitive, and that's the time you play it. So, yeah, I was like, where is this coming from? And the Gabe Kapler 2023, that was actually my list of guys to replace Craig Counsell when I was writing for the Wisconsin site for the Brewers. Yeah, I thought Gabe Kapler would have been, a solid for the Brewers, and I think he would have been maybe a nice transition.
He's a great in-game manager.
Yeah, but here's the thing: he's quirky. Okay, but you need to know if that quirkiness. When Pedro was described, I thought he'd be a Gabe Kapler type of guy. And by the way, Gabe is not a guy that's everybody's cup of tea, but Gabe has something. He's Gabe Kapler. You know what you're getting with him. Ozzie Guillen, you know what you're getting with him. Counsell, you know what you're getting with him. I think that your manager's number one criteria that they need is they cannot be full of shit. Pardon my language. Because players can read through that. And that's where I think Corey Lee, our rookie, felt that he had enough confidence to say, well, I don't feel that way. That's a Chris Sale, I'm going to cut your jerseys comment because I've been here for a long time. Hey, which I respect Corey for saying it.
OJ,
but that's ballsy from a kid to say that.
If my coach today said we came out flat, and somebody came to ask me, well, what did you think about those comments? I'll be like, you know what? We did come out flat. We played like crap. I played like crap. Corey Lee went the direct opposite. You know why? Because he let everybody know what the players think of Pedro Grifol now.
Put it this way.
That's the tip of the iceberg. That's just a tip.
Just look at the comments from the Cubs side with Counsell. Look at the 8 years of proof of.
I can't wait till Pham get traded and then he starts telling
White Sox history. Ozzie would just go nuts. Players would put on the TV because Ozzie would say, watch what I'm going to do to you guys. And they laugh because they were like, when he was mad, he'd use the media to like either avert attention or get a message through or whatnot. And when they would ask the players, they'd say, even though they were pissed sometimes, they say, that's Ozzie being Ozzie. We just figuring it out. And they were dealing with like hardcore drama stuff, the Kenny and Ozzie thing. But he never lost the clubhouse, meaning Pedro said, we don't want anything to get out. Well, he was the one that let it out. He was the one that completely let it out, that let us know, because I didn't know the team was flat. I'm like, they're just getting no hit.
I thought that was just a regular day.
No, I'm just saying, I didn't see anything in their body language. Like nobody didn't like not run a ball out. Like I was just like, this guy's just shoving. Like this guy's just sword after sword after sword. So that was one game that I wasn't like, oh, this team's flat. Like it's not excitement. Like if Tommy Pham says that, okay, Tommy's been in the league a long time. He's, he is who he is. He's done it multiple times. You're like, it's great. It's Tommy. It is what it is. But when a guy like Corey Lee, who's not even established, and then Pedro, the funny part is he doesn't play him the next day. A little message there, and that's the part, because you have the Martin Maldonado part where, if you're a player, this is where players are not dumb. There's factions, man. You're like, the kidney should be playing. Martin shouldn't be playing. Like, as a teammate, you're like, Corey's the best option that we have to win games. So now you start having that split amongst players of like, hey man, Corey should be playing. And that's where you little comments like that, and then you get a chance to do a little cheap shot at your manager. And then the next day of him, saying, I might have just been out of proportion. That guy pitched really well.
It was probably
he said, I'm gonna double down.
It was like when TLR told Lance Lynn, that's why I got an office and he got a locker.
Correct. But but here's the part. Ozzie, Tony La Russa, Ned Yost, those guys had credentials to say nutty things like that, where they had long-term contracts. They had hardware on the walls. These guys are looking at Pedro right now and saying, this is the worst manager in White Sox history. When Nicky Lopez made the comment, I've played for 4 managers, I would have been like, can you rank them in order of best to worst? Ooh. I'm just, because again, so that's the part where he doesn't have he doesn't have the ability to be able to do that and get away with it and get the response of guys that he thinks that he should be getting. And also he hasn't built to this, because every day he's telling us as a fan, okay, you're watching the game, okay, and you know what the players are doing, and the manager's telling you they're playing amazing, and you're in your head like, I don't know, man, like this team should be bad, but like not this bad. There should be closer to 500. But then a game where you're like, they're battling against the best pitcher in the league, and you don't think that, and then the manager comes out and says something like they're completely flat, you're like, wait, this makes no sense. So what about the other games? So what game am I watching? So you're telling the fan base that they're dumb. You're telling all of the media that they're even dumber. So there's people that are watching this game that are smart. You got platforms like Todd that are covering on a daily basis, that you're at home, you're scratching your head like, what the heck? Like, you feel bad not calling him out, but at some point you're like, what are you talking about? And in the words of Tim Anderson, and I wish TA sometimes was on this team, the STUFU, shut the fuck up, that he said to Ozzie, that's literally what you want to say to Pedro of like, bro, what are you talking about? And that's where I think that if you compare managers in a bad situation, I'm going to talk about Craig Counsell, it's just totally different. Even though he's been there for first year, like kind of like it's because he has the credentials to be able to say my team is flat, my team is this. This guy doesn't have that. So, Todd, in your opinion, do you think Pedro finishes the season with the Chicago White Sox as a manager?
The only way he finishes is if Jerry Reinsdorf doesn't want to pay to make him go away, like the rumor was in July when they said that he probably should have been fired and Jerry didn't want to pay him. That again, that was just the rumor. I think it was Joe Colley who threw that out. But I think at some point you have to try something different. You've got Charlie Montoya sitting right next to him. A proven, he had some success as a manager. I think that he would make sense as the interim, and why not give him a tryout? If it works, you remove the tag. I talked about it this morning. If it doesn't, at least you have a clean slate of getting rid of that previous leadership that put you in this position. That way you get rid of Rick Hahn and Pedro Grifol, and you can start fresh with a front office that you hope can actually fix and do things right by, drafting right, getting the right prospects, establishing this is how we're going to play baseball from rookie ball all the way up to the majors, that type of stuff. And again, when you talk about getting respect or, even points, like one of the few times that I covered your dad, and I almost went full fanboy when I got to cover him. I got to cover him one time, and I wanted to just worship at the ground he walked on because I grew up loving him. And also he brought a World Series that I never thought would happen. But I remember, with Ozzie, there was the press conference, and then there was the off the record press conference. And on the off the record press conference, a player was complaining about not getting playing time, and Ozzie went on a little rant, but he also said at the end of the day, well, you suck. That's basically what he told the player to his face. You're not playing well. I'm not playing you if you're not playing well. And Pedro's out here making excuses for a guy like Martin Maldonado, saying, he's going to get a few balls going his way and he'll get back to hitting 200. He hasn't hit 200 since what? 2020?
And that's with protection in the lineup. I mean, protection.
Yeah. I mean, Martin Maldonado is not going to be hitting anytime soon. He should. His numbers are so bad. Those are clear indications he should retire numbers, like 2 years ago numbers.
They will let pitchers hit if they keep giving Martin Maldonado at bats. They will.
But that's
go
what
back
I mean.
to
Like,
the rules.
it's so easy though, because you can say, "Hey, in the beginning of the season, Martin Maldonado was a guy that we thought could, carry us and, manage this staff." But in the position that we are now, we talked to Martin Maldonado, and we're going to keep him on the roster for his leadership. But we're going to have Corey Lee hit more. I just gave you like a clean slate. Cut it off and be able to move on and figure it out. But at this point, I think that we've crossed the line of him pissing players off enough. And I think it's only going to get more interesting as the time goes along, because now people are figuring out, is this guy full of it? Players read the media, players talk. And here's a part that Lawrence Holmes talked about. I don't think he's a very well-liked guy. I'm not talking about off the field and people that might know him. In baseball, writers, people around the game, like, he's not as lovable as they made him, Rick Hahn made him out to be. Because we've gotten a year and a half of him and we still can't figure out, because he's not a good manager with X's and O's. He's not a good communicator in the clubhouse in the sense of like what's going on. He's not a good communicator with the media. So we're here kind of figuring out, and I love the Charlie Montoya of like, you don't know how good or bad Charlie's going to be because you never given him a shot. So why not cut your losses? And, you're paying maybe Charlie like an extra, whatever to finish the year out and say, hey, finish it out and going there. Like, you're not going in for a pennant race. So any type of improvement and development. So that part, I don't know if it's a Jerry thing, if it's a.
You want to know the sick part about all of this, bro? Do you know how many other broadcasts feel just perfectly fine with ripping the White Sox? It could be a game between the Orioles and the Athletics, and the White Sox will come up, and the broadcasters, we just don't know what the White Sox are doing.
Because nobody's scared. Because nobody's scared of them saying anything, or they're not scared about the manager, or they're not scared of retaliation.
The White Sox in my neck of the woods, we got a situation called the lick. That means the easiest bet in the world. And right now, the White Sox are the easiest bet in the world because the manager doesn't stick up for the players, and the players aren't in a position to compete on a day-to-day basis. That's just a disaster. It sucks. Like, I'm literally watching a Red Sox versus Orioles game, and then and they're talking about the previous series with the White Sox, and nobody knows the direction of the White Sox, where we're going, what we're trying to do. It's sad because it's universal now.
And I think that it's gonna. I think that, and I want to get Todd's opinion on this. I think they're gonna reevaluate not only the managerial position, but the pitching coach position and other positions where you kind of
Marcus Thames got to go. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, like, they're gonna reevaluate because. And again, it's like you keep getting worse. Like, we wanted Frank Menechino out like every single day.
The team was batting 300 and let them
it keeps getting worse. So there's going to be a reassessment. And I think the number one candidate is Mike Matheny. I think that Mike Matheny is.
Ooh, I would like that.
So
we need some more Cardinal way.
Kansas City Royal. Timeout. Kansas City Royal. Hold on. Kansas City Royal. Knows Chris Getz.
Oh boy, I don't like these dots.
Fits into the thing. Goes to Tony La Russa. Has built success before it where he's been at.
So we went over the internal options a couple episodes ago. I think they're going to stay internal. It just makes sense. But let's just get down to the external probabilities here. Beefloaf put an article out there, starting it off with what Junior just said with Matheny. He gave 3 options. Matheny was the first one he gave. Number 2 was Pedro Gil. And then number 3 was Will Venable. So let's go into
Who?
Will Venable.
yeah.
Who?
He was the Rangers assistant coach that won the World
Oh, the
Series.
bench guy. The bench guy.
Yeah, the bench guy.
Oh, okay.
Man,
And he's
he played for
the
Cubs.
hot option right now on the market, supposedly at the moment
For winning teams or teams that are trying to rebuild.
for winning teams.
So that's a
Never.
mistake. Why would you
So-
bring a guy that's never managed? It's very hard to pull the Ozzie Guillen. Again, that was 15 years of winning, and he just came from winning the World Series. I don't get when teams do that. There's managers to get win right now, and then there's managers to build something.
Me personally, I just felt like that was a lot of, Bochy running the ship, so I wouldn't put too much stock on letting Will run on his own.
Yeah, I got
you go ahead.
2 names that I would love to see.
Mhm.
If he wants to come back, Terry Francona. That's the guy that I'm targeting. Number 1, he's been in your organization. And number 2 is he's managed bad teams and gotten them to overachieve. He's had great talent and almost won a World Series. And he has won a World Series. That's if he wants to come back from all his health issues. And I think the rumors is he's thinking about wanting to come back.
He's
The other
addicted
guy
to
is-
baseball.
What?
He's addicted to baseball.
Yeah.
He can't stop.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that, Todd. If you're going to, and this is a part where there's certain names that will be like, okay, that guy makes sense. He's on that list, on that very short list of this guy is going to get you because he has done something consistently, and he can have the rapport of building the media. How you're going to handle this. You can't argue that he's not a good evaluator because he's done it for so long. And that's the risk where you run with guys like Pedro Grifol, because they sound great, because that's the new thing. You go to the interview and you sound like you're a CEO, and people think you're a genius. Like, oh my God, this guy's the smartest guy since sliced bread. And then you find out that this guy is not the best manager out there.
He's moldy bread.
Well, at the very least, you want a net neutral manager, a guy who's not going to lose you games. And Pedro Grifol is
he's costing you games left and right.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, if you can get a positive that can actually help add 1 or 2 wins, because that's usually what a great manager is going to do, that's Terry Francona. The other guy that I would say is, if you want somebody with ties to the White Sox that might be younger, Willie Harris, third base coach from the Chicago Cubs.
That was going to be my option. Yeah.
And I talked about that. I remember I wrote when I was on the Windy City, I wrote about that as a replacement for Tony La Russa. Guy that can communicate, understands the current baseball player, is willing to embrace new ideas. That to me would be the guy. Mike Matheny, I just think the Cardinal way, I agree that he would be a nice candidate, but the Cardinal way is sort of decaying. And
right before our eyes.
I mean, it's a great, but it could be, I saw this work. It could just be the talent acquisition could be the issue that they're having right now. And obviously you would love a guy that comes from a system that has developed talent, and that's going to be the path that the Sox need to take. So I'm not totally opposed against Mike Matheny, but I would just prefer to see, can we get Francona, or again, a guy like Willie Harris, who has at least ties to the organization, but has gone outside of the organization and has expanded his viewpoints.
Well, Todd, and you can see, like, we talk about Willie Harris, Mark Kotze, and even Beefloaf had an article, Will Venable. The 4th outfielder on the roster is turning into the big league manager. That's what the prototype, Gabe Kapler, perfect example. Rocco Baldelli, even though Rocco was a top prospect, eventually, once the injuries caught up to him, he was off the bench. Like, the 4th outfielder right there is a guy that's been put in many different situations throughout his career, off the bench, seeing the game from the dugout more times than a starter.
Because they're broke.
Yeah. So, but hey, at the same time,
they didn't make money. That's why they're managing.
Yeah, but
those league
the
minimums.
day-to-day operations of baseball, those were the guys that was in the thick of it. They didn't have their name guaranteed in the lineup, and they still had to be ready every day.
So they have to see how they're going to build. And I like those names that are thrown around. I think that even with the move after Rick Renteria, okay, and this is, I don't know where Todd is at with the Tony La Russa. Tony left this team at 500. The disaster of a hire that Pedro Grifol has been, and if you look at the list of guys that Pedro beat, okay, interviewed and not interviewed, it's embarrassing. Like now the joke around is like for Ozzy's like, people might think I'm dumb. Like I'm just literally the dumbest person in the world if this guy beat me for an interview. You know, Carlos Mendoza, I'm glad he got a job because everyone that's interviewed is Spada as well. Everyone that interviewed in that group or did an interview is like, Rick Hahn's comment was, I've interviewed a manager that's going to get ready to manage 20 years in the big leagues. Like, I don't think that there has been more of an off, even though with all the players that didn't make it, like Moncada and Eloy, and even with all the guys that were of the core that did not become Hall of Famers or superstars, I still think that the Pedro Grifol is the biggest disaster of the window, hands down, because he has not delivered even a 1% of like, oh, wow, at least Moncada gave you a season, and this guy gave you a season, and this guy, you know, everybody had like flashes of greatness. He has been a complete disaster, where not only did he not bring him, he lowered him from 500 in a competitive level, like Jay just said, a laughing stock, because that's
worse than Bobby Valentine.
I'm just saying this is why I like Terry Francona. Whoever comes in, man, has to bring back a culture of we're going to be taken serious.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing is, think about it, the window collapsed on Grifol, and part of it was he sat back and let that clubhouse get into disarray, and he admitted it. I just sat there. No, you were hired to get the clubhouse out of disarray. You were hired to get a standard of, hey, this is how we're going to play. I mean, I get, you know, I wasn't a huge fan of Tony La Russa being brought back, but at the same point, it's Jerry's team. You know, that's the downside of loving a team that you don't own. And you're right. They did win the division. I think Tony La Russa deserves a lot of credit for how he deployed Michael Kopech. I mean, Michael Kopech was thriving under Tony La Russa. But when you brought in Pedro Grifol, I mean, just everything went to shit. It feels good to swear. I'm sorry. I have to be
no,
great.
You're right.
We actually love that shit.
Yeah, I have to be G-rated, so it's like, wow, I can.
I'm just saying, it's great about the Tony because there was other guys on the list that might have been better choices, but it's like, okay, you brought somebody that's in the organization, knows Jerry, and is the winningest manager out there, and maybe he didn't bring a World Series, but he got him to 90 games with our injured line roster, and then 81 and 81, who knows if he doesn't get sick, and then Miguel Cairo kind of like keeps it 81 and 81, and you're at least flirting with, and this is a part where I think Terry Francona and those guys are interesting, is from the Ozzy era, and I guess that 1 year for Tony, everyone thought World Series playoff every single year. I think that White Sox fans just want to get back to 500. Like they want to get back to being like we're relevant. It's you look at the games under 500, and it's embarrassing when you're like, okay, we went through the worst part of the season. It's going to get better. Usually teams don't like completely up like the point. Usually go crazy losses, just start getting beat by everybody like later in August.
Yeah,
not now.
To that point, OJ, it's like I know we're going to get beat because obviously the talent ain't there. I didn't think we were going to get beat because Gavin Sheets is batting second at the Trop. Like, if that's the type of stuff that's going on, how can you remain employed under that? Look at the erosion of Andrew Vaughn. Just a shell.
Well, that's how many prospects have got worse. Because again, like I know people are mad at Tony, but like people got worse after Tony. That at this point, I wish they were just like when they were with Tony, where it regressed. Like I think just like the Ozzy era brought the most money, the most wins, the most over 500 seasons in the last whatever X amount of time. The Pedro era is like, you're now looking at the worst manager in White Sox history. Like it's not even like something that you're debating. It's like it's mathematically there. And mathematically, the worst years of the White Sox financially. So you not only have to worry about wins and losses, you really need to bring somebody or do something to really bring those fans in and kind of like show them that hope, because it's going to be interesting, because he was so oversold and so, and this is Todd, I like the fact that you mentioned that, and I want to get your take on this. When he got hired, which I think it's funny, nobody claims him now. Nobody in the media claims him. None of the fans claim him. And I've been trying to find people's tweets from that time, because I took pictures of a lot of tweets. Because obviously Ozzy was in the competition and whatnot. And people were DMing us and talking trash when he didn't get the job. And I understand fans, but people that cover the team on a daily basis, now nobody's claiming him. People were having him on their podcast, interviewed him. This guy's amazing. Look at him. He's helping out of people, giving them hot dogs, and look at him in the first family. And where are they? Nobody claims him. Now it's all bad. And that's why I pulled up those articles and I was like sharing them because people are writing, Merkin was one of them. This guy's a genius. I talked to this. George Brett came on to score. And George Brett was like, I was like, dude, George Brett's a great hitter. He's not a good first front office guy. Like, he's a great hitter. But they sold us on this. Like, he literally, ever since the Brent Lillibridge trade, I never felt that it took such advantage of us. Real quick on the Brent Lillibridge joke is because we asked Ozzy at a dinner, we asked Jim Fregosi about Brent Lillibridge, about like, hey, this guy that we are trading for, like how, and potential trade. And he said, oh, he's amazing, blah, 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 blah. And he sold them like the future shortstop of the White Sox. And he pulled one over us. Like
the biggest part, and I'm a Brent
and that
Lillibridge
happens.
guy.
That happens.
But think about that, Ozzy. I'm a Brent Lillibridge guy, and his most significant tenure with the White Sox is when he was filling in for Paulie at first base.
But
think
again,
about that.
But again, you get taken, and then happens when you get oversold. But like the situation here, and it's for Todd that covers the team on an everyday basis. I feel like the hard part for me is that when I see flashes of like, oh, this guy has some future, Corey Lee, and Gavin, and Crochet, just Kopech, and guys that you're like, okay, we got some momentum. Like 2 steps forwards, 3 steps back, because they're not even getting played. Pedro, says something, like benches them. Like, it's getting to the point where it's like he is literally detrimental to the development of them in the big league level. And I really want to know of why I want him to stay there, to be honest, because of taking the L's, and I want him to get as many L's as possible. Because for self-satisfaction, what I heard Rick Hahn say in the call to Ozzy saying he wasn't going to be the guy, I know why he got fired. Because he missed so bad on that, it wasn't even funny. Like, it was so bad that he missed. He wasn't even like remotely close. Like, he's hands down in the list for being one of the worst managers of all time. But I'm now getting concerned of the development of the players, especially after this weekend and the whole like bickering inside of the clubhouse. Because if we want to see winning baseball, we need to see these guys develop within the next 2 years in order to be competitive sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to find the receipt, I think I was actually happy about Grifol at the time just because they went outside of the organization. But I believe I was one of those people that are like, well, the Royals didn't promote him. I mean, and that's the one thing that the biggest thing that the Sox organization has missed out on a lot of lately is context. The Royals had an opening and did not give him the job. He was there and they're like, well, we want him out of here. And one of the things that they said was, well, we wanted a different voice as a manager, but I think they knew what he was. And they're like, we want nothing to do with this guy. And it didn't take long for him to be like, well, you won an interview, but you're not winning many games. And that, I would say, I quickly turned on him in that case. But hey, I'll raise my hand and be like, hey, at least they went outside the organization. But hindsight's 2020, and definitely he is an absolute disaster.
But they also gave it to Quintaro, and look what he's doing right now with the Royals.
But again, so I was with Todd on like, I get they went outside, so it's like, which I think it's the biggest BS White Sox fans, like they went outside the organization. It's like, okay, wow. For example, Ozzy, oh, he was an outside of the organization guy, never been in the minor leagues with the White Sox, never coached with them, never did anything other than play with them. Okay. Being outside the organization is like, did this person grow up in our farm system, in our development system of that, as he had experience in other teams? So Ricky had it, Ozzie had it, Jerry Manuel had it. That's what I mean outside, just because somebody played or whatever. I get that part. But with Pedro, again, in the interview, you cannot come off as Mr. Perfect, brown nose, or, kind of like, I'm going to do what you guys tell me to do, kind of like answering the question correctly every single time. Those were the red flags that I look back at now, because I'll be honest, like, I had people that told us, I thought that Pedro was not going to have issues on the day-to-day of managing, like on the X's and O's. From what people had told me around the game, they're like, oh, he'll be fine. Like, he'll have problems, like, maybe getting used to the players and, like, the big games, but he'll develop really quick. On the X's and O's, he won't have any problem. I had a faction of people telling me this, and then I had another faction of people saying, this is nuts. Worst coach I've ever had. Oh my God. Blah, 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 blah. Like, so I was worried at first, but I never thought that the X's and O's were going to be an issue. But as much regression as he's had because of the way that he handles the media and the way he handles his conversation, I think if he would literally handle the media well, I think that we wouldn't judge him so hard on the X's and O's on the field. But the combination of both just makes it that much worse. I think that, as it's funny, man, coming out and making a video saying we're going to kick your ass every single day. Like, one part that I know that the people with the White Sox, oh man, I'm going to be honest, Jay, people get mad. Like, when he says, and you guys can figure out who of the White Sox has written me about this, and it's not Ozzie. But when he talks about, I know what this jersey feels. What are you talking about? You've never worn the jersey, and when you've worn it, it's been the worst time in team history. What do you mean you've worn this jersey? Matt Marullo feels the jersey more than you. Dan Pasqua. So, like, when he makes comments like that, people are like, wait, what are you talking about? So that part, it rubs people the wrong way, because you're like the Cubs Sox series, when he said, oh, I know what it means to play Cubs Sox with the Cubs, visiting Wrigley Field. And then you go back and you're like, that guy's been there one time when they played Kansas City. I've bad boy there more times than he has coached there. When people said, oh, he was a World Series coach, he was a bullpen catcher and translated. If I put the gear on in 2005, I'm Grifol.
No.
Yes, because I translated and I was with the Latino pitchers in the bullpen. Had I officially been the catcher, as the bullpen catcher, I would have been Pedro Grifol in 2005 World Series at 21 years old.
Oh my God.
But that was a selling point. He was a World Series team. Oh, really? That's how nutty, that's how crazy. It's not Mark Kotze. When they said we hired Mark Kotze, I was like, man, that guy's going to do awesome. The guy from Cleveland, I told you guys he was going to do solid. I was like, he's been in the game. He's going to be a likable guy. He's not going to mess it up. So I feel bad for Charlie, because I actually know that Charlie's a better manager than he is.
So real quick, Todd, did you have any last lingering questions at all for us? I know you've been listening throughout the past couple of weeks.
I know, I'm
putting you on the spot. I know, but
man. I mean, I guess when do you guys think that they should trade Eric Fetty? Should we do it now or do it before the trade deadline? The only reason why I'm bringing it up is, does the bottom fall out? Does he eventually turn back into a pumpkin? Although I don't think that's going to happen. Or, you just don't want to see a liner go off his head and now he's out for the year or something like that.
Right.
So I guess that's the biggest thing. Should they start making these moves, like moving Tommy Pham or moving Eric Fetty as soon as possible, or wait till the trade deadline?
I think, in my honest opinion, I could say you could stand pat, because most of the roster is Eric Fetty or Tommy Pham. You know what I'm saying? You have a limited amount of guys that you're invested into right now, so you don't have to make any impulsive decisions. But at the end of the day, Todd, I want to thank you for coming on. This has been one of the best shows. Seriously. Very informative. No, seriously, I like it. I think you stand pat with Eric Fetty and company because number one, like you said earlier in the show, you got to give a product. You got to give me a product on the field. Give me a reason to buy some tickets. You know what I'm saying? And everybody like, okay, all right, here we go. Everybody hates Mike Clevenger, but guess what? I like paying my $32 to go see him pitch in Jordan cleats and spin a baseball to the best of his ability. All of that other stuff, sure. But the fact that he could make his curveball give me almost 3,500 RPM, I like that. You know, I could deal with that. You get the trading these guys off. Like, I'm not paying money to see Mike Soroka throw batting practice. Okay, I'm not.
Give me Clevenger when he's actually has his arm behind him because he had no spring training. He
I'm
had no
gonna
spring
say
training.
this-
We're
I'm
going to get
gonna
on him
say
for
this
3
right
starts.
now. White Sox fans are gonna go to the game if it's me playing catcher and anybody.
I'm not paying money to see you catch.
Everybody says that. Okay, the hardcore fans are going to be there so they can go and tailgate. Okay, drink beer.
Maybe I'm not hardcore. Maybe I'm medium core.
I'm just saying, you guys were all tailgating, all hugging each other, celebrating that. And correct. And celebrating the broadcaster came out. You and the bums and everybody. Like,
outside.
There's nothing wrong with that.
One of the first games I ever watched was 1989, I believe.
Bad
Dad
team.
took me. I think Steve Rosenberg was the starting pitcher against the Boston Red Sox. It was 7-4. They lost. But I think that was also the day that you could go on the field and shake hands with the players.
Yeah. So there's a documentary out there. I'm sure Todd's watched it. That's called The Last Comiskey.
Yeah.
Okay. Second funniest plot to only Moneyball, where you're celebrating a team that didn't win jack.
Yeah.
Last Comiskey is like when my son's going to watch Last Comiskey, I'm never going to tell him how the season ended. He's going to get excited. And then at the end, he's going to try and say, because I thought that season, because I was young, I thought that season they ended like 1 game behind them. They ended like 6 games behind them, like September. Like the movie's like, it goes till August. Never tells you what happened in September. If
they had the wild card, they would have made the postseason.
They would have. And a lot of times in the 90s. And that's what the White Sox fan base wants. If you're a Yankees fan, I get that you have a status, or the Dodgers, of like winning division after division, and you need to be 30 games above 500. That's your culture, okay? The young people out there under 25 years old, I don't care what culture you want to implement now in Chicago. That's not White Sox culture. That's not White Sox history. They've never won. In 100 years, maybe in the Black Sox, and they cheated that time, and that was like the best 4 years that they've ever had history-wise. It's always been a team above 500. Let's battle for second place. Obviously, now with the wild card, you might get more playoff. So people are always going to go to the stadium when the team is being competitive. They like that run at first place. They like that battle because it's fun going to the ballpark on a day you're 2 games behind and the fireworks are there. That's exciting. And now half the league gets in. Trust me, Ozzie era, only 2 years without the playoffs. Way different view historically wise. But so you have to. It's better now for fans because of when you're building a team, you don't have to win 120 games to be considered for a playoff spot. So I think that if you bring a competitive team and you bring them there and you have them, fans are going to turn out. So I think if you move these pitchers, it's not going to affect attendance. So in my opinion, you move him whenever you get the offer that you think you're going to get. Right now, Chris Getz and the front office has to decide and say, what's our best offer and when do we know that we've hit it, and not sit too long and think we're going to get more and not cash out. Why? He's signed for 2 years. So if you want to make a move for him, 3 years, well, 2 and an option. Options don't count, Gonzo. Team option thing, those don't count.
And he's 8.5
only Rick Hahn makes an option to let a guy walk away is the same money as keeping him, like he did with the closer. But that's for a whole other episode. So I'm saying, like, you could sign him in your competitive window or try to bring him back. But I think right now you need to consider having him bring back some value since the Sox have so much pitching in the minor leagues.
Yeah, I'm not trading him like with these early trades that are going off right now. I say you hold him to the trade deadline. Just because you saw what you got out of Lance Lynn. You got Leisure and Nastrini, and you got that with Lynn with a 6 ERA. So there's going to be more arms going down the injury coming up. A lot of teams needing pitchers. They're going to be contending here shortly. So for me, I would trade Fedde later, and I answered this question earlier, but I would also trade Luis Robert Jr.
Here you go.
Luis Robert Jr. and Eric Fedde. Those are my two guys I'm trading for max value, and I'm focusing on position players because I got a whole lot of pitching in the minors coming up. Not only am I also not trading them early because I trade them later because I'm still trying to figure out. I believe we're gonna have an emergency podcast within the next 2 months that Pedro's gone, so that buys me time to bring the man.
You got sources?
That means that I'm putting the man into place when we bring up this core later in the year, and we're gonna have that ready to go. And it's not gonna be I don't think it's gonna be an external. I think it's gonna be internal hired bringing up because you're already beginning this core in Birmingham.
You're saying they're going to bring up the minor league manager to finish the season with the minor league core?
Yeah.
That is probably one of the wildest takes I've ever heard in my life.
I think you're going to bring up either Jersley or Santos up. And I wouldn't be surprised as a manager. Hold up. Maybe a bench coach.
What do you mean, hold up?
Because I'm saying, like what we said a couple weeks ago, I think his dad gets the call, and this is going to be negotiated.
Who gets the call?
Senior.
To do what?
To come up. We already had this discussion with.
Where?
No, Senior is going to get called to come in to be the manager.
I think the only call I'm expecting at this moment is retire my number.
That's it.
No, because we did have this conversation.
No, we did. I think Ozzy's a good fix me for 2 years, try to get these guys going.
But you can be that guy to mold if it's this internal route to mold either Jersley because he's been a name in your dad's interview.
Jersley would have been the bench coach if Ozzy would have been the manager. That's
what I'm saying. You're holding the trade that way. By the time that these trades are done,
it's a nice conspiracy
you're bringing
theory.
the guys up.
No, I agree.
With that manager, it needs to be done now. You can't just wait and then bring all these guys up, and then it's just going to be
that percentage. That percentage, is going to get
Juan Diego.
That percentage of that win and loss record. We want to keep it as a positive. We don't want to get schlackled.
Well, Giannis was on the White Sox podcast with Chuck Garfien, and I think that he did say that they don't really want to mess too much, though, with Birmingham. I mean, it's an interesting idea, Gonzo, and I get the point. That might be more of an idea that they would entertain in the offseason, but they've talked. I mean, that's one of the reasons why Drew Thorpe has not been promoted to AAA when people are like, why is he not there? They like what's going on, and according to Janish, I'm probably butchering his name.
No, it's Paul Janish.
Yeah. But they like what's going on in Birmingham, and they really don't want to mess too much with that. That's why we probably won't see Drew Thorpe or Iriarte probably till later in the year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. You bring these guys later in the year, but already with the manager in place that they're used to.
But if they don't survive through, I have a feeling that Pedro, if they get crushed by the Brewers, I don't think Pedro survives.
So Pedro doesn't get to 100 victories is what you guys are telling me.
I would be shocked.
Man, hell no.
He's 76 and 142.
No.
I don't see it.
Because the White Sox would have to be in a competition window.
Johnson, my father is nutty. By the way, my father is nutty enough to take this team, by the way.
No, come on, bro.
He has enough passion and enough. I'm saying Ozzy is. Not saying that's what I'm going to advise him, unless there's enough years on the table to say, okay, you're guaranteeing this much, and there's like a buyout clause or whatever, like for him.
You're an enabler.
No, not an enabler. I'm saying, like, I'm just being honest. Like, when the right situation was right after Tony got sick, bring him in, salvage what you have of the season, see what you have, inject Ozzy into the veins of the team for that last run and see what you had there. And then after that, you would have judged them. Or after the Tony thing, you interviewed him, which was the dumbest thing of all time, because now we can actually say you considered Ozzy, but you had Pedro, is like the biggest whiff of all time in White Sox history is that one. Just like they hit it out of the ballpark in 04. That was like the worst thing ever. Now it's like, okay, is it worth it for Ozzy? Because Ozzy's job is fun. It's cool. I just don't see it. I think that they could have had their chance if they would have wanted it. And here's the part, man. Ozzy is very hard to have there because it's I told you so factor for them. Every prospect that Ozzy told them was gonna be crap, they were crap. Everything that Ozzy told them was gonna happen, even when he's not managing, has happened. So they know if he comes in and Gonzo's like, Noah Schultz from Oswego is the greatest pitcher of all time, and Ozzy sees him and says, this guy's gonna suck, they're not gonna want to hear that. I'm not saying Noah's gonna suck, but it's just his evaluation. They know that he will push back. It's the opposite of Pedro. He's not gonna sit there and clap and say, oh my God, this guy's gonna be he's gonna be like, this guy's horrible, get him out of here. And it's gonna be that. So that I don't know if they want to work with that type of kind of pressure in building a squad for the future, because he's going to be, and again, I put Ozzy in that list, AJ Brzezinski, just their personalities. Because Kenny was great for that. Kenny did not care. Kenny would embrace the tell me how much my guys suck. Let's get into an argument. I love this. It was like two Vince McMahons going at each other. Vince McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin was like Ozzy and Kenny. That was like their dynamic, and it worked. I don't know if any other GM wants that because of their personalities. So that's why I'm like, fit wise, and it's not like he's going to make Marlins money. He's probably going to make good money, not astronomically amazing more money, but it'd be a nice way to get back in the game from what he's doing now. But it would be I would be shocked.
Also, from the historical perspective, I mean, trust me, I'm one of the people that would love to have Ozzy back. But from the historical perspective, the Sox have now tried twice, to bring guys back with success.
Yeah.
Al Lopez way back in the day, and then Tony La Russa. Maybe you might want to go in a different direction. I think Ozzy would do a great job of getting some fire in there and, pushing back. But we've seen the Sox try this before with bringing back successful managers, and the second go around hasn't been great for the franchise or the person's legacy.
Correct. 10 more games.
Do you think it's because of a different breed of player?
No, because it's hard. Because Ozzy's legacy is as much as White Sox fans on Twitter dog shit on Ozzy and on guys like Kenny, they brought the only trophy to Chicago in the last 100 years. It's the most successful era of White Sox baseball. That's why he got paid the biggest contract. He was Craig Counsell and Bob Melvin before Craig Counsell and Bob Melvin. The money that he got from the Marlins. It was a contract negotiation thing. It's funny now because they used to be mad at Ozzy for wanting money, but now they call Jerry cheap. It's like, wait, Jerry wasn't paying him for the same situation he's not paying guys now. It's just the way he runs his team. So from a legacy standpoint, I hate the Robin Ventura because Robin does not deserve the way that fans now view him here, because he was only given one team 1 year to compete. Okay. I think that the Tony La Russa coming around the second time because of fans and the DUI, and they thought that he was the worst human being ever, from calling him racist to anything. I don't think that he deserved that because his record was not that bad. With Ozzy being better than both of them in their previous tenure, okay, Ozzy won the World Series. So unless you go back and you win the World Series, which then at that point he's a Hall of Famer pretty much, it's going to be a disappointment. So it's from that standpoint, it's like, what do you have to gain from that standpoint of like, I hope that he just manages 10 games and then let him win a couple, and then he can pass Tony and be like the official third of all time in managing as your managing record, because right now him and Tony are tied. But
you have to gain, so you get to gain the Hall of Fame. But from how I see it, that was Jerry's option in the last round, but Jerry gave Hahn the decision. Hahn chose Pedro. In this situation, this is Jerry's final. All right, I'm going to go after my guy now.
Well, maybe. And again,
I'm gonna give Senior the shot, like he was probably wanting to do, before the Pedro hire. But again, I just, in this situation, I feel this is the opportunity for Senior to take it. And then I think they're going, if it comes down to Jersey and Santos, I mean, that's just going to be discussed during negotiations.
They'll be both in the staff if Ozzy, there's enough positions to go around, especially if they want one of those two guys for real.
Yeah.
Two things that would suck, because we talked about it last time when we almost got the job. No more gambling. So all my FanDuel accounts and MGM and all that would have to be canceled, and I'll get off Twitter because
you're not going to have an interpreter.
No, I'm not going to be part of the team. I'll just be.
No. That was a gambling joke. Come on.
Oh, Oh, yeah. No. I don't mess around with that stuff at all. I don't even want to be linked to that stuff at all.
Right? Gonzo, you a sick pig.
No, but I'm just saying. No, but it's serious. That's how much we view like gambling and that stuff being like sensitive. So
yeah.
And I would get off because, like Todd said, this generation of White Sox fans will destroy Ozzy and his legacy.
All right, we're at the 90-minute mark. So, further ado, Todd, give me any shout outs of where our listeners can find you, what you got going on, and do you have anything special coming up, articles or interviews coming out? Give me the rundown.
Well, I'm on Twitter at ToddJDub or at Locked On Sox. You can hear me every day on the Locked On White Sox podcast. Your team every day. Otherwise, usually just a lot of stuff that I write on. It's just whatever I think about on the day. So I don't really have a ton to preview. I think I'm gonna have to reach out to you guys though. I'm going to Disney in August, so I have to pre-record 5 shows. So I think I'm gonna be doing people's fan experiences in August. So I think I'm gonna have to reach out to you guys and record some of your fan experiences and that type of stuff. But that's about what I got.
And thank you. Keep making those daily pods because I'm definitely a listener and I enjoy them. So I love the format of them. So and the writing, I love the combination of them. So keep up the good work and know that you have a home here, and we'll always be sharing it. And again, one of the positive voices of the Chicago White Sox and baseball in general. You've added the experience of covering a team, Todd, that I think that you would agree with me that the White Sox should be trying to mimic, even though they've never won a World Series in a long time. But I think they've had a lot of success the last 20 years.
Yeah, the Orioles and the Brewers. I'd love to see the White Sox mimic.
The White Sox will never win because we don't know what a Sal Frelick looks like until we.
But you don't have to win a ring to have fun. You don't have to win a ring in order to have a successful franchise.
I'm talking about.
You got to remember, October's random. I mean, the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Atlanta Braves were outstanding. To me, they were the 2 best teams last year, and they didn't win the whole thing because it's the randomness. You have one bad week,
you're done.
Chicago White Sox in 2005.
Yep.
Everybody had a bad week playing them.
By the way, is it funny that Andrew Jones never won a World Series ring? John Smoltz has one.
Yeah.
Wow.
How wild is that?
Oh,
on
that
every single year.
Yeah. How many times were they there? And one. Just one.
That's okay.
Think about those Cleveland Indians teams back in the 90s.
Oh, yeah. Manny didn't have one. Jim Thome didn't have one. Roberto Alomar.
Yeah.
Travis Fryman, too. My boy
Alomar had one. Alomar came with rings. He had got his in play.
Yeah, he got his in Toronto, but we're talking about just the roster itself.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of guys on that. Again, Jim Thome.
Kenny Lofton.
Yeah, ringless.
That 93 White Sox team, I talked about Frank Thomas today. Think about it. If they win one game at Comiskey and get that deciding game 5, they go to the World Series.
If we start Wilson and not Jack.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a Frank Thomas home run off of Williams in the World Series? Oh, my God.
Yep. And that would have been him instead of Joe Carter.
Oh, my God.
We just need to see Soxtober again.
With Nancy Foss on the organ as a walk-off?
That's why I agree with you. You got to build a competitive team.
Yeah.
Get a team into the postseason, and then you just see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Make these trades, get your manager in place, and let's make Juan Soto a priority.
Damn.
That is how we're ending this. So, Todd, thank you for coming on, being so graceful with your time. We appreciate you, Todd. Everyone, go ahead and go on Twitter, look up, or wherever social media you use, look up Locked On Sox or the Sox Showdown. Todd, thank you for joining us. We will talk soon, my friend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
All right,
That was
boys.
great.
That was a fully packed 90 minutes of conversation of some juicy topics going on.
Too much Pedro, but
Yeah,
he
it is
doesn't
what
stop.
it is.
He doesn't
It's hard.
stop. He doesn't stop. He doesn't effing stop. He doesn't.
I forgot to add on that not only did he bench Corey Lee, he doubled down and talked about how amazing Maldonado is. He's not a 300 hitter. He's not a 100 hitter. He's somewhere in between. Wow.
He's below.
What
He's 0.83. That's below 100.
He doubled down. And
by the way, I took offense, though. One of the hardest things for me is like not to reply to fans when they talk about Jerry, because I don't want to go down and everybody can fan as they want. But I'm going to be honest, man. The Ozzy chants, as much as people think that we enjoy that, that's embarrassing. It's embarrassing as a franchise. Okay. I feel bad as somebody that loves the game of baseball, that someone that's sitting in the manager's job has to hear that. Okay. Because he's hearing it. It's just wild that if they let it get to this point. And it's not, if he had handled the situation different from day one, from the press conference, from the
intro videos.
No, the intro. I'm being honest, like the intro video, the press conference, like the way that the things, the doubling down, what he said when he got hired, what he said after the guys who brought him in got fired, how he's handled the players, how he's, it's really like mind-boggling, and it's sad. It's sad and like awkward, embarrassing, because you're sitting there at home watching it and you're hearing the chants and people are texting you. I have Frank Thomas texting me like, "Yo, you hear the chants?" Like you're like, you don't want to be that guy. And again, I wish that I could critique him more on X's and O's, because every manager gets critiqued on X's and O's. Okay, that's just part of the job. But the fact that you're critiquing on him on like how to handle, like when Ozzie Guillen is telling you to be quiet as a manager, you've gone overboard, because Ozzie is like the most talkative manager in the history of the White Sox. And when he's telling you like, damn, like you need to like hit the brakes, like you are going, that's just like really upsetting. And then so like when he thinks things about Jerry, and then you're saying that you double down like he wants to win, I feel like he really has a vendetta or something personal against the fans. Like that's a very touchy subject with fans, the whole like Jerry, and if you can see people that are in the media like Ozzy and them, they try to avoid it because they know the sentiment of the fan base, and you don't want to rub it in the fan base's face. Okay. Like if he wants to do that when he does his press conferences or when he does his things, it's okay because he's the owner of the team and he's speaking for himself. But to have somebody else, where they say carry the water for you and tell you how great everything is in his name, I think it's unwarranted, because number one, I don't think that that's what he wants, and number two, I don't think that it's what is it going to accomplish, man? Because people are just going to get pissed at you.
Yeah. Well, that's why I say you got to do something. You can't allow this to continue on, because it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And it's just going to look more bad on yourself.
Oh, I think that his job was safer before he made those comments. I really think now, after the clubhouse situation and him saying all that, like what was the quote? I get the text messages. Mm-hmm. I get like, if I'm Chris Getz, I'm like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? You get the messages. Like, that's like saying I'm being like, that's, I'll be honest, man. Kenny, if Ozzy would have said something like that, Kenny would have been in the office being like, yo, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like, one of the best Ozzy Kenny fights ever, I must say, is I never shared this publicly, this is a good one.
Ooh, I'm gonna write this down.
No, it was just funny. I can share it now. It's no big deal. Ozzy went into Jerry's office, and this is like when they were like going back and forth, and Kenny said something about like, oh, he gonna go talk, like cry to his daddy, like amongst like, he's gonna go cry to Jerry, and Ozzy heard him.
Oh boy.
and they went at it. But it was like I thought it was funny because if I'm in Kenny's situation, I would have said the same thing. Like, oh yeah, go cry to Jerry. It's like two siblings. Like they want the same thing, winning. They're both not getting what they want with each other, and Jerry's like the parent. So it was funny how it all, because I'm sure Kenny never thought that Ozzy would hear him, and I never thought, and Ozzy never thought he'd hear. So that was like a funny one because it was funny. It was like, oh yeah, go cry to your daddy. Like
I'm gonna build a time machine, and I'm just gonna.
But it's funny because he's both their daddies. You know what I mean? Like he's both their daddies. But again, when you've been around every single day, and we still talk in the way that it was described, is just so out there. Like it doesn't fit the personality. It just doesn't. Like it really doesn't. That part was like, and it was just like right after Lawrence Holmes said that he was managing to get fired, which I don't know if he listens to the media or whatnot. So it was just awkward timing. So that part, I'm like, this is just weird. Like we've literally entered the weirdness, the awkwardness of the season. Like now it's like awkward.
We've entered Grifol's grounds. Like it has seriously, OJ. It has went from the Blackout Show, and Grifol's grounds have infected.
It has.
The Shield.
We can't talk about anything else because every week, like you could have, like after that no hitter, I was like, man, it was awesome that somebody could come off the bench and save the pride of the team, because they were getting shoved. Like a lot of these, this is the thing. Every top pitcher in the league is looking when they're going to face the White Sox. Why? Because they have the worst offensive team. So you're like, I'm gonna tell you right now.
I got some newfound respect for Garrett Crochet, because not only are you going up against the best right-handed lineup in the American League, you are also going up against a guy that is mowing your fucking guys down 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You have to be perfect. So what does Garrett Crochet do? He sits Gunnar Henderson's ass down. He sits Anthony Santander's ass down. He sits Colt Kowser ass down. Like, he made sure that the White Sox stayed in the game as much as possible while his comrades is in no-hit land.
And that's why I like Crochet, because to get yourself, I often talk to Ozzy Sr., how he stayed competitive in 86, 87, 89, 90. Because you're going out there and you're like, man, we're not a great team. And he was like, he was young in his career. And it's like, how do you maintain yourself as a competitor to go battle 162 when you're in that situation? And what I've learned from him is like, you're doing it for a paycheck, so you want to do well so you can get paid, but you have to kind of compete either because you want to impress your manager, for the fans. Like every little time you're trying to find like a motivator, like your opponent. Like every single day you have to like pump yourself up.
That chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, you have a chip on your shoulder. And I like that Crochet has been able to, like, he hasn't taken the season off. And I like that because it's like, okay, if he's able to turn it on now, what happens when they start winning games? Like, I'm going to see the fist pump, the let's go. I like that. Like right now, if I'm looking at if I'm a scout trying to bring a bat to a team, I'm loving the fact of how not only Tommy Pham is hitting, but how he is playing with this team. Like he's playing electric.
Yeah.
So you want to inject that into a team and kind of like that life of, man, I said the other day, I was like, I never watched Tommy Pham play every day, but I was like, it's exciting how he goes about his work every single day. Like he's playing on the Yankees right now. And that's exciting because, the team's like, whatever, it is what it is. And that's the type of thing I'm looking when I'm bringing a player, not only stats, but can this guy step it up at this level? And I think he's a perfect example. So those are things that I'm looking at from a player standpoint of, man, this guy's doing a little bit better. This guy's improving. Because again, the future is in a lot of these guys might be in the future of the White Sox, either because they're going to be playing here in the future, or they're going to be big trade pieces for guys that are going to come here in the future. And I think that we might have, because of that one comment, we're going to be competitive this year. We all might be judging Chris and the front office a little bit harder. Had they never made that comment, I think that we would be thinking about it completely different. But I think that one comment, just that one word of we're gonna compete, it's a quick turnaround. I think that's what everyone's holding on to and not really letting them, hey, we brought in a new guy. We're going to help make sure that he develops and brings in this front office. Let's see the minor league. And by the way, the positive thing, and you guys know I'm not a huge minor league guy. It's way better that Birmingham's playing the way that they are, because if Birmingham wasn't playing that way, and this is ironic, it's the first time that a team has been playing as a team and not just players. Even when Moncada and Pantera were down there, it was always like individual,
just performances.
It was never like a team winning as a team. That hasn't happened in a long time. The White Sox have had the worst farm system records-wise, wins and losses. So for Birmingham to be playing the way that they are, whatever they're doing down there, it's working. The staff that's down there, I would try to replicate that, not only at the big league level, but also the minor league level, kind of just making that like, okay, we're going to build this culture, because it's a positive one. And it's one that I think goes hand in hand with the evaluation of players, because I totally believe, man, I don't think that you just become a winner overnight. I think that winning attitude, chip on your shoulder, you might not win a World Series, but you get used to competing and winning. And that's where you get teams like Cleveland and like the Tampa Rays of the last couple of years, of like you're grinding out, the Pittsburgh Pirates at the moment right now, where you're grinding out and making a season a fun one. And again, you're not the Dodgers, and you're not going to, you don't have the best payroll in baseball, but you're building guys that you're going to go to battle. And then when you hire a Terry Francona or a really good up-and-coming manager, you really have that hard-nosed team, and that's culture. What Birmingham is building right now, to me, that's culture. Culture is not like teams sitting around and like, having a big kumbaya.
Or streaming video games together.
Yeah, guys are going to do what guys are going to do. Like, in the 80s, they would go out and party and, drink a lot at bars, and now they stream games. And again, guys are different style-wise, but I think a culture is like you want to show up to the stadium. In the winning years where Ozzy and the teams that I was around as a bat boy, as a translator, you always want to be at the stadium. Like, oh, it's game, like it's 1 o'clock, we're going to the stadium. Like you feel pumped, like, oh, we're going on the road. You're pumped about that. Not having a good culture is like, damn, like, it's like when you're at work, like you don't like where you work at.
You got to think. You got to think like look at the Yankee culture right now. We got guys complaining about having to shave their facial hair, and we got guys saying it don't matter because we're going to win.
Yeah.
I'm going to shave my beard because I know for a fact I have a better chance at October than.
But do you guys remember when Jerry was obsessed, and Ozzy always like, when he's going to make him cut his hair? And I'm like, it's different times. Remember when Jerry was obsessed when Creedy and AJ started growing their hair out?
Yeah.
And they went from like growing it out to like bleach blonde. He wasn't a big fan of that at all. Like at all. He was totally against it. Like what? And Kenny never cared about things like that, or Ozzy, but he had a hard time with it. And the players would be like, they would change it because they were winning. Had they been losing, they would have been like, F this.
Why do you care about a baseball player's hair when they wear a hat 99% of the time?
It's again, team rules, and there's different things, but I'm saying when you are winning.
That's when AJ got punched too, with that blonde hair.
But that chip on the shoulder of when Ozzy got to the White Sox, and again, I talked to Ozzy. I bring Ozzy up because he's the closest manager I've ever been around, and he just did it in winter ball. When he showed up, had his team meeting, it was about your actions on the field will dictate what people think of us. Okay? The Sox, unfortunately, in this go around, have been more marketing and hype of telling the fans how they're going to play instead of going and just delivering how they're going to compete.
Yeah, they're talking about it, not being about it.
Correct. And that's something I think it's bigger in baseball than people actually give it credit for. Because right now you're seeing it. Like the Yankees have a couple players on their team that not your typical Yankees. I don't think Michael Stroman is a Yankee. When I think about guys that are your typical Yankee players, Verdugo, those are the types of guys and players that, again, and when you're winning, things are a lot more positive than when
You got to
take
think I don't want to turn this into a fucking Yankees podcast, but look at all of the best players in Yankees history. They were prolific dirtbags. They were the best players in the league that did the dirty work. Paul O'Neill, Tino Martinez, Bernie Williams, Jorge Posada, all guys that had gaudy offensive stats, but when you watch the game of baseball, hit behind runners. Tino Martinez can turn a 3-6-3 double play. You know what I'm saying? Like, Don Mattingly could be a left-handed third baseman if the Yankees asked him to again. Like, this is stuff that's not. It's just baseball.
So, quick question:
Yeah.
Are they flat today?
No,
Well,
Corey Lee wasn't flat.
I'm just being funny. I'm like, so at this point, when do we know if they were flat or not? Because I'm trying to figure that out.
I
They
think
gotta
we gotta
figure it
we gotta
out
be on no hit watch
'cause
for us to be flat.
they got to figure it out because we're going on the road. Speaking of the road, Junior, this upcoming schedule is on the road. And this weekend, Friday through Sunday, we are going to Milwaukee, the Brew Crew.
Oh, fuck.
I know.
My receipts, by the way, did you guys keep my receipts from last week?
No, you got to keep your receipts. They're your purchases.
No, I'm talking about. So I said that they were going to win 2 against Baltimore.
Yep.
Gonzo was 100% right. They got shellackled, and then the Nationals. I said that they were gonna win 2 again. Not a good week.
Toronto,
for me,
you mean?
ones.
That's because you're a Sox fan and you like the team.
I'm not. I don't bet them all the time. Like I'm just. It hurt my bank account because I did take those games that I thought they were going to win against Baltimore with high odds. Lesson learned. But
speaking of Fetty, Friday is likely Fetty Wap versus Tobias Myers. Saturday, Crochet versus Robert Gasser. I can't wait for that matchup. 2 southpaws going at it, Justin. Sunday, another interesting one, Nastrini versus Peralta. This is tough on the road. I'm gonna go 0-for-3 again.
damn.
Contreras is batting .324, 8 homers, 43 ribbies. I thought we'd have a shot if it was at home, but I'm gonna go 0-for-3 on the
You
road.
want the bums? You're not gonna let the bums see a victory on the road.
Bums are gonna be
they have to tailgate.
Brew fans. I could see them changing jerseys.
Man, stop playing. Don't disrespect them boys like that, man.
No, they would never do that. They would never do that.
It's
Never.
the NL Central.
Are you serious?
So you guys have them what? 0-for-3?
I got the Sox getting the shit beat out of them. And the reason why is Milwaukee is an amphibious offense. The OPS comes from Willie Adames and Christian Yelich, but they are an exceptional base running team. Sal Frelick, Jackson Churio, others. And I don't even want to get into William Contreras because he is on demon time. And we don't even have to waste that. You can find some extra runs in that bullpen. No Abner Uribe. Trevor McGill's going to be out probably a week or 2 as well. So there is sensitive spots on the Brewers, but they play really good defense. They're going to give us good starting pitching. Like Gonzo said, Robert Gasser, he's a wild card. He's just like the Washington Nationals' Mitch Parker. You got to be careful with these young lefties because this is a situation to where the White Sox can be in, it ain't even no hit territory no more. It's flat territory. They're in danger of being flat. They will be flattened. And Freddie Peralta been throwing the ball pretty well too.
So with the White Sox lost, how many games in a row are they lost right now?
Jesus. Why are you making me more depressed?
Well, because I'm just saying
7?
like 7. Is that 7 at home? Is that a franchise record?
Yeah, they lost every game. Either 8. It's got to be 8. That's a franchise record. This is the first time in franchise history we went an extended homestand without getting a victory, at least one.
They're 15-42 right now.
Well, I'm just saying, like, but that's a franchise record.
Yeah, for the home that homestand I just said. Yes, that's a record-breaking loss today.
That doesn't sound right.
Does the White Sox have never lost 7 games in a row at home?
It's probably how long has the homestand been? It's probably been longer than 7 games.
We need Jay Kuda on this.
Please help us out, White Sox math. Okay, so we have the Brewers. Okay, so I'm doing my math here. So we have the Brewers, and then who do they got after that?
We got 2 games at Wrigley, Tuesday and Wednesday next week. It's just 5 games.
So the White Sox. Oh man, this is wild. So the
White Sox Tuesday's matchup is going to be projected possibly Woodford versus Shota.
Oh, God.
And then Wednesday.
Shota been getting this shit smacked as of very recently.
By the way, we might take that bet though. I kind of want to like the White Sox to win those games against the Cubs because it's going to make White Sox Twitter blow like that. It will be that will be the fact that they're losing right now, and the Sun Times cover is like foul, and it's a picture of Pedro and Counsell. Craig Counsell does not deserve that, guys.
Bro,
that's messed up. It is messed up.
You know what?
It's messed up. It's messed up. They're not playing well, but they're only. We're looking here. They're only 4.5 games out. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm looking at the wild card.
White Sox, as you're looking, Flexen is going Wednesday versus Jamison Talon. I'm gonna go with the split 1-1.
I agree with the split, but here's the wild part.
Yeah.
I think the White Sox might decide the National League Central.
Because we play that all those teams that's wild card teams.
I just think that if the Brewers sweep them and the Cubs don't win their games, let's say the Cubs lose 2 out of 3, that 4.5 becomes like 7.
That it could be very well be 8.
And then the split, I feel like the Cub fans need the White Sox to step it up against the Brewers, is what I'm saying. Because if the Brewers sweep and the Cubs don't, I don't know who the Cubs are playing.
Yeah,
it becomes like you have 7-game lead in the division. It's really hard to lose it unless you have a huge debacle. But if they get to 7, now you're flirting like the Brewers now get a lot more comfortable in the division, is all I'm saying. So that should be the chip on the shoulder for the White Sox, saying, "We want to, let's get them. Let's make it interesting in the National League Central.
Let's play spoiler in May."
I'm being serious. I just told you now. Whatever motivates you, like you go and you play really well against the Brewers and you ruin it for them. Like you're like, man.
Why can't the fact that some of these players wake up and their batting average is below 200? Why can't that be enough to be like,
that should be enough because nobody's calling them out. Dude, if you played on a team where guys are like really on you, they're calling you out consistently. Yo, what up, 089? What up, 089? Until you say something and you fight.
I don't even like to get to strike 2 on my team in my league because it's over with. I'll be ready to cry in the box. Like, no.
I'm just saying, like, you have that chirping. And again, I don't know. Some teams do. I don't know if the Sox do. But on today's take, man, you guys blew my mind when you guys said that you guys don't think Pedro gets to 100 wins.
No, he doesn't. Because
we already got them going 1 for 4, and June is already here.
That's multiple winning streaks, OJ.
So that's 28 games away.
Yeah, you think it's gonna get any better?
That's 2 14-game winning streaks that we gotta go on 2 separate.
No, you guys are just no. I'm just saying, like, dude, this guy takes up space in my head that shouldn't be taken. Okay, like legitimately. Jose Ramirez is a great week.
I thought that was reserved for me only.
Well, he's taking work. By the way, and he says something dumb. my Gonzo meter goes down. That's like the best thing can happen.
My God,
This guy, well, Jose Ramirez goes out and he's like trolling people, like saying I'm better than Barry Bonds. I'm like, what's the Jose Ramirez is trolling everybody? Then I want to enjoy this, and I can't even go in and just like enjoy this team playing well because this guy lives rent free in my head. Why can't you just suck like every other team that just sucks? Like, I'm not worried about. I'm celebrating Marcase's wins.
I could tell you what I am enjoying. I'm enjoying another pick-to-click victory this week.
By the way, I can't even handicap the pick-to-click.
Fucking bullshit.
I'm saying I can't even handicap it because I can't even find a consistent.
You know what? Y'all talking to Manny Ramirez from now.
What was the final score on the click-to-click? Because I was trying to figure it out.
It was all right. So Junior, you picked D Young. He had 2 hits, 3 ribbies. This is how bad it's getting. Now we gotta look at hits right now. Jay went with Yokes. He had 5 hits, no ribbies. And then my boy Tommy Pham had 7 hits, 1 home run, and 2 ribbies.
It's fucked up.
So here, should we start playing like if you get an RBI, you get double the points? Since
like low key, like I could win pick to click with a sack fly.
We're at that territory, and that's rough.
So this is a part where like people like if how's Andrew Vaughn and people are like you suck. I'm like I lead the team in RBIs.
Before we get to our picks, the standings are I got 5 with the lead. Jay's got 2, Junior's got 1. Slavko, good news. Slavko's coming back next week, so he'll be back in the groove again.
That's worse for me. Slav needs to start sending his picks because if by the time he gets back, I don't have wins and he just passes me.
Bro, I'm in second place and there's a gap between me and Gonzo.
This is beautiful.
That's what I mean, though. Like Gonzo, I think he's got Pedro's number. Here's the thing: when he plays my guy, when my guys do well, it's like Paul DeJong. Why isn't he playing every day?
Why isn't Corey Lee playing every day?
I'm just saying though, like when you pick, like I'm literally sitting here, like the kid that you picked. I didn't pick him because I thought Pedro wasn't going to play him.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go. Tommy Pham's off the board. I'm gonna go with my boy Pedo, or not Pedo.
Are you drunk?
Opie. I'm going with Opie. I had the wrong nickname on my mind.
Ooh.
I'm going with Opie. Andrew Vaughn.
Are you drunk?
Yeah, he's having a good May, and I'm feeling his drip right now. Jay, you're up next.
He ended tonight with a bomb off of Jordan Romano, so you just gonna have to give me cousin Corey Lee.
K. Lee.
We about to flatten this fucking
Junior. How are you gonna get on the board?
I think he's in his good graces. I think he likes him. Didn't throw him under the bus completely. I was gonna pick him last week, there's the reason I'm pissed is because I think I would have won it. I'm a little hesitant because he did get a lot of hits last week. Can he replicate that week?
You know what I thought you were gonna say?
Nicky Lopez.
Go ahead.
He got 9 hits last week. He's hitting 409, 12 total bases. Here's the part that sucks. He had only 1 RBI.
How do you have 12 hits and 1 RBI?
He scored only 4 runs. Well, I'm just saying, like, again, so since we're competing for
you guys could have had a home run. I thought one of you were going to say I'm going to win a pick to click with choosing Luis Robert Jr. coming in the Cubs series for 2 games.
Nah, I'm going Gavin Sheets.
Oh, you went from Lopez to Gavin? Okay.
Hopefully Pedro bats Gavin second so I can win this week.
I'm just saying, like, I can't, even with Nicky getting all the hits, he's got 1 RBI.
Yeah, that's
because his team don't get on base.
Lopez might be in the tool. Getting most at bats.
Yeah, but that's still 1 RBI.
Oh, man, Paul DeJong. Oh, man, I made this guy hit 091, 22 at bats, 2 hits. And he got them all.
He got all the power.
He got 9 Ks. He came 9 times. He did have 3 RBIs, though.
Stop swinging with square and swing with circle.
Yes. Hopefully I don't ruin Gavin.
And our picks are I'm going with Vaughn. Jay's going with Corey Lee. Junior's going Nicky Lopez, the Naperville Kid. Guys, it's time for shout-outs. Junior, take it away.
Well, my shout out is to, I'm not supposed to probably celebrate this because I am an umpire, who is registered as a IHSA varsity and all that, but huge win today by Lamont High School, beating St. Lawrence, advancing to the semifinal sectionals. So my brother coaches there, 9-0.
Ooh,
yeah. I think the game was closer than the 9-0, but big team. So I guess the next game, I don't know who they play. I think it's Oak Forest or Rita. So it's an evergreen. So congrats. They did not expect that, going into the tournament. And shout out to Todd for being on. Todd's shows are really cool, really concise, 30 minutes. I usually listen to them either prior to going to bed or when I'm getting, doing something in the morning real quick, because they're like concise of what happened the day before, kind of gives you the tidbit. So big fan of that. And then he has a written portion of it, which is really cool because I love seeing all the comments on Facebook. So I'm really happy he came on because, again, he's one of the guys that I do follow on the show, and I follow his work. And from our end, again, we're grinding. Last week I said that we were not going to make the show about Pedro. Hopefully he doesn't say anything that's like dumb, so I don't have to sit here and talk about him. It's embarrassing. Like it's literally to the point it's embarrassing. I'll talk about Jerry. I'll talk about Brooks Boyer. I'll talk about the White Sox. Obviously they're going to a different channel, and it's not going to be NBA, anything but Pedro. And glad you guys were able to be on. I was able to jump on. So looking forward to seeing all you guys next week. So thanks for being here.
Jay, take it away.
Well, you already know, regular schedule program, and shout out to Asia. We got some wedding cakes this weekend. Been working your ass off. So proud of you. Wish I can learn something from you, but what can I say? I'm just another dumb guy. But more importantly, you're a dumb guy. So shout out to Asia. I do got to give a shout out to Washington Nationals right fielder Lane Thomas. He's came back with a fucking thunderous bat. I swear. I'm gonna tell you, he is one of my favorite players in the league that nobody talks about, and he's gonna come back and he's gonna shake up the National League East. If you look at the landscape right now, the Mets dumpster fire. Atlanta is non-competitive 3 times a week. I don't know if people notice that, but they get their ass whooped 3 times a week. They don't have Ron anymore. They got Austin Riley and Sean Murphy back. Miami, they're a colostomy bag, and Philly's at the top of the mountain looking down. What you're about to witness with the Washington Nationals, you're about to see how to organically dethrone rich teams. Starting with Lane Thomas.
Is he a top player, like your Cubs top player, who's got a negative WAR?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. I was just asking. By the way, I'm in second place in the standing, playing Juan Montenegro this week. Nobody talked about my pickup of Estrada.
Straight strikeouts.
Mm-hmm. Probably one of my best pickups. I don't think I'm going to be able to pick up a better guy in a moment.
Hopefully he could get you a decision, because the way that the Padres are deploying him.
I'll take the case.
I'll take the saves with Suarez.
Well, of course, but I'm saying unless he kills Suarez in his sleep, he's not going to close. And I didn't take him as a closer.
He said unless he kills him in his sleep.
Unless he kills Suarez, or Suarez has an injury, which I'm not hoping for fantasy.
Can you imagine if
I have Class A.
By the way, Suarez doesn't get enough love for what he's doing.
Oh, he's doing amazing. He's doing amazing.
And he doesn't even get the shout out for being one of the top leaders.
No, I agree. I have Class A, so again, but I'm facing Juan Montenegro. I'm second in the standings right now.
Mm-hmm.
I
had that as the matchup of the week. I gave you guys a shout out.
I just had to bring it up.
Battle of Venezuela. My shout outs. I got shout out my one and only Soraya. She's been battling with the dogs for the past 2 hours outside, and I told her that this show wouldn't be going 2 hours. So I'm in the dog pound.
Oh, you lied again.
I'm in the dog pound. I'm in the dog pound today.
Little Pedro here.
My second shout out, I gotta give shout out to Todd once again. He's been so gracious with his time. Todd, appreciate you for joining us for those 90 minutes. We know we can talk. We apologize, but we don't apologize because that was great content. And he actually
So do we or we don't?
He DM'd me. He DM'd me, giving us some love, and he wants to use some of our segments for his upcoming material next couple days. And I told him go right ahead. Also, yeah, Junior, you beat me to the punch because I was going to give a shout out to Osni because beating St. Lawrence is a very good.
Oni, wrong brother, Oni.
Sorry, Oni, my bad. I saw Osni's name prior today. Apologize, Oni. Good job being St. Lawrence. Anytime you can beat a private school in a tournament, it's always a victory, especially if you go and beat St. Rita and the semifinals coming up. If that's who you play, I'll be rooting for you. But on that same topic of IHSA playoffs, my boy Coach Strube and his Lincoln Way West Warriors beat the Lincoln Way Central Knights today in their own sectionals. And Saturday, my Warriors go up against the Providence Celtics on Saturday for the sectional championship. So
that's 4A, right?
Yeah, that's 4A.
Big boy.
I'm pumped. I'm pumped. My Warriors are at the next level. Shout out to you, Strube. We gotta get you on here shortly. For me, that is going to wrap it up for my shout outs.
Next week we got to talk about. We didn't talk about it this week because again, the guy that leads this team just made it impossible for us to do that. But I think it's an end of era. I think that Angel Hernandez either leaving, and I actually heard the rumor. So he umpired, I think, his last game in Chicago.
Ooh.
Or he hadn't umpired in a while, but I guess when he was in Chicago, like there was some type of like celebration, and people were like, "Is it because of Angel?" But he's retired, fired. I don't care, but you usually don't know umpires' names. You know Angel Hernandez's name. He was like the news for like 3 days. So I think that we need to give him some time and talk about his legacy next time we talk. Legacy, White Sox. When did Angel screw you? Type of situation.
That sounds like a Me Too movement.
Well, I'm just saying, because I didn't realize how many people are going to be happy or how many people were upset with Angel. Like, it was like a nutty thing, man. Like, it was like Rob Manfred got fired. Like, legitly. Like, it was, and then we got the topic, which we didn't get into, about the Negro Leagues and the stats being combined.
Oh, yeah.
People going nuts about it. People say
Josh Gibson, new home run leader.
No, not home run. Slugging, OPS, and average. So Ty Cobb is number 2 now.
Absolutely disgusting what they just did.
So again, Lawrence Holmes talked about it, so I want to debate it.
Yeah.
I get it why they did it, but it doesn't change anything. The fact that you still didn't let him play. I think that the numbers, now you confuse everybody 100 years from now. When they're looking at the numbers, I still think that they should be honored as their own league and then explain to people why the numbers are not together.
I'm going to get canceled, that show.
I'm saying, I think we should debate it because I really think – so, Jay, I want you to talk about that because I feel by them integrating the leagues together –
they water it down.
Correct. It doesn't show the impact of there was this league because of this.
Yes.
That's my opinion of that's why I like them having their own Hall of Fame and their own history, because I think that the Negro Leagues, I don't think people realize how important the Negro Leagues are for Latino players because it's too deep
that's
of a concept.
That's the underground of
that's the
American
underground
baseball
of Latino,
right there.
There is no Negro Leagues, there is no Latino players coming to the United States. If
no Minnie Minoso.
No. And then also the impact of Negro players playing overseas in Venezuela, Cuba, Dominican Republic, basically helping build those leagues to where now, we have Caribbean Series being played in Miami. And I think all these things should be, celebrated. but combining them, I think it waters it down of like, what did you accomplish? And you don't give that league the credit that it should be giving. And I think at the end of the day is like, you're trying to fix something in the past when you should be focusing on things in the future.
It's crazy how they do this, but they're reluctant to bring Negro League uniforms back to Major League Baseball.
Correct.
Why aren't the Chicago White Sox wearing the Chicago Giants jerseys at least twice a year on the South Side? Why?
Well, I think like if you're doing, and again, that's something that's very interesting where, and we can debate, again, we're not going to go in, I know Gonzo has to get off, but you make it part of their marketing. You know, before it was like the one game, but like, how come you don't use that uniform as like your alternate? Okay. How come, you don't have
Kansas City Monarchs? Oh my God.
Like
That
the
is
history.
Satchel Paige.
Well, by the way, the best museum, again, with all due respect to the Hall of Fame, I think the most underrated museum in baseball is the Negro League Hall of Fame in Kansas City.
Yes.
But I think when you're looking at, I think that that focus on like the numbers, I feel like they want to take away from like what they're not doing. Like I have a bigger concern of the number of African American players dropping in the last 50 years in Major League Baseball. Because now they say, well, there's Latino. So like there's things that you could debate that it's like, oh, it's a win. And it's like, really, is it a win? It's like now they're on a list, but it changes nothing other than the fact that now everybody's together and now everybody's going to debate this. And now you're going to have them talk about players in a negative way, and it's not even their fault.
Yeah, so I'm gonna reserve my opinions for this for next week because I met Josh Gibson at a
Really?
Yeah, at a baseball convention in Chicago.
That's awesome.
This was when I was in high school.
You could have been two. That's a big flex right there.
So I had my Warriors hat on. He actually spotted me out and he called me over because like I just bought some like baseball cards from like a couple shops down, and he was just at like a side table with in the Negro League, banner underneath. So he was just talking to people, and he called me over because he saw my hat and he wanted to talk about baseball, obviously, and he ended up signing his card. So I gotta go back home and look at everything
That's
else.
A big flex. That's a big flex.
Yeah. When I go home again in November, I'm gonna have to check that out, or at my parents' house, because I can't remember what else I got from him. But I remember him ending the discussion, giving me his phone number back then because he wanted to come talk to our baseball team. That's a story for a different time.
That's wild, though. Was not expecting that.
Yeah, so I was interested when I saw that the news came out. So we'll say that for next week. Angel Hernandez, Josh Gibson. Boys, that wraps it up. We had a fun 2 hours here on the show. Todd Welter, thanks for joining us. Locked On Sox. Everyone go check it out. He's got further stuff coming out. Everybody, thank you for watching The Blackout.